This is a nightmare scenario. Terrorists and militia now with access to deadlier weapons than ever before. How safe are we? Is there a possibility at all that something like what happened in Ukraine could happen in other places which are very dangerous? The Middle East, North Africa. What can India do to guard against this? How can we make our skies safer? Joining us on the center stage face-off tonight, Air Marshal Ahluwalia, formerly with the Indian Air Force, General G.D. Bakshi from the Indian Army, R.S.N. Singh, former RAW officer, and Sheshadri Chari, National Convener of the Foreign Policy Affairs Cell of the BJP. Air Marshal Ahluwalia, to you first. Viewers watching this broadcast most concerned about whether this is a one-off or is this now a new threat that the world needs to brace for? What happened in Ukraine, can it happen elsewhere? What is the possibility? How can we guard against that, sir?
I think you can revert back to September 11, when so many aircraft in the most densely populated and the most technologically advanced country, the United States, so many aircraft simultaneously hit so many targets together. I think this asymmetric warfare has become a major issue, a major threat in the future. And the question is, how are you going to guard against it? The first thing is that it is to be ensured that this kind of weaponry is not passed on to the hands of, non-state actors. Now, this has been going on for the last few decades, that we have been passing on, or countries have been passing on to non-state actors very lethal weaponry. And this is what is likely to happen, because firstly, it should have been the intelligence. It should have been Ukraine itself, which is responsible for its airspace, to announce very frankly that we are not in control. Please do not fly over this zone. It's a hot spot. 5 aircraft have been shot up in the last few weeks. And therefore, the only way to avoid such things is have good intelligence, have responsible governments, responsible airlines that make sure that they circumvent these kind of hotspots. If you want to go to Israel, you are not going to be able to fly over so many other countries, but you'll have to go right across the Red Sea. Another 5 hours of flying if you're going from east to west, if you're going to Tel Aviv. So therefore, you have to be cautious. The airlines have to take precautions. Countries have to take precautions. The airways have to be managed in such a way. I repeat, the airways have to be managed in such a way that you do not overfly hotspots. Okay. We have to manage not giving this kind of weaponry to non-state actors.
No, but that's beyond anyone's control. If non-state actors get their hands on weapons like this, General G.D. Bakshi, how do we make our skies secure? This has happened twice in the past. A Korean airliner shot down by a US fighter plane in 83, an American warship accidentally downed an Iranian jetliner in 1988. But those were both state actions, mistakes, but done by armies of regular states. Now you've got non-state actors with access to deadlier weapons than ever before in human history. Is this a one-off? Do you think the face of terror is changing, General Bakshi?
Rahul, I think it is about time that the world braces itself for more such unfortunate incidents. The fact of the matter is that asymmetric warfare is now becoming the primary form of warfare that even states wage against one another through the agency of non-state actors. And the lethality of the weaponry being supplied to the non-state actors is on the rise. As far back as the Afghan war itself, the Americans had supplied Stinger missiles to the Mujahideen to shoot down the the Russian attack helicopters, the B-25 Hinds, B-24s, and also the jet fighters. Now there are reports that they have been supplied, the shoulder-fired manpads have been supplied to the ISIS and other opposition groups which are operating in Syria. It is very dangerous, this very business of asymmetric warfare which the states are sponsoring, states like Pakistan. And if they increase the weapon lethality, I'm afraid we are going to have more of this. Now in the instant case, I'm afraid there is a slight distinction. What is happening in the Ukraine is a civil war. The weapons usage is not that of a terrorist kind of a setting. I'm afraid when you get SA-12 or the Buk M1M missiles, or it could even be having an S-200, both Ukraine and Russia have it. So the fact of the matter is, you were flying into a war zone. I totally agree with Air Marshal Ahluwalia that I'm afraid the airlines and the intelligence agencies of the world will have to be far more alacratic. The Ukraine is at fault for trying to hide the fact that it has lost control of its airspace, and
no,
Air
surely,
Marshal
but intelligence
Ahluwalia has given the
agencies
figure
from
of
other countries also, especially Malaysia,
aircraft shot
should have
down
warned
there.
Malaysian airlines not to be flying in that zone. I want to go across to Mr. Sheshadri Chari. How do you think should the BJP government be looking at this new threat? Do you believe that this potentially changes the threat perception of what global terror constitutes? Or do you think this shouldn't be confused with terror because this is a civil war-like situation between Ukraine and pro-Russian separatists, or anyone can actually become collateral damage even if this is just a civil war and we need to guard against it?
Rahul, it's very simple. Your question that you are posing to the viewers.
Yes.
Whether this can happen anytime else, anywhere else. I think the simple but very unfortunate answer is yes. This can happen anywhere in the world, anytime. So let us not remain in the fool's paradise by going back into all these things. The fact of the matter is, there has been a tremendous proliferation of not only the nuclear technology in spite of the NPT, but also of small and medium conventional and non-conventional warfare. So this kind of a proliferation, a small incident anywhere, a fault line anywhere can explode into a very serious situation like this. Innocent lives can be taken away. Therefore, this can happen to anybody, anywhere, any country, anytime. Therefore, it is for the world community, especially the United Nations, to intervene and put in place within, say, about 48 hours, a string of measures. Some of the measures could be, we can ask all the commercial liners to have some kind of a air traffic signal system whereby their signals are picked up by different areas. In this particular case, this particular aircraft was taken by surprise. There was probably no time for the pilots to react. And moreover, the ground forces that were operating, the rogue missile that Air Marshal Ahluwalia referred to, has obviously been supplied by a country which is authorized to manufacture this. Therefore, there must be an immediate ban on all these things. It is not difficult to identify the missile, it is not difficult to identify the area of production, it's all very easy. Therefore, I think we will have to go into these details. The world will have to sit up and take notice. It is not the question of India or America or Russia.
You're saying this is not a one-off, and you're saying a country cannot think in isolation. There has to be a concerted global strategy. Everyone will be sailing, flying or sinking together. Colonel R.S. Singh, from the perspective of an intelligence agency, how does this change your threat perception? How likely is this to happen elsewhere as well, and what can be done globally to guard against such an action?
See, I'll come to the global part a little later, but firstly, let me remind you that when MH370 disappeared, one of the theories that was being ascribed was that it was the plane was likely to be used as a bombing device on various type of targets in India, and it could very much have come into the Indian airspace. So there are many theories, but I can tell you I have gone into that whole disappearance of MH370 very intimately. One thing is I am very certain about that theory of a dangerous cargo being on that aircraft, because two people belonging to the Navy SEALs, they were eliminated once this cargo landed up in Malaysia from Seychelles. That part I have the names of those fellows. So let's not forget we were there on that that kind of a threat earlier also. Now coming to what can be done globally, I'm afraid the use of rebels or what non-state actors, as previous speakers have said, is now being used for influencing geopolitical outcomes, and these powers that we have stopped at nothing, like Al-Nusra And they, which is an affiliate of Al Qaeda in Syria, is being supplied with the most sophisticated weapons by none other than the Americans. And so is the, allegedly with the case of the with ISIS. Now, if you have been watching the entire development, the geopolitical developments in the region, it seems that we are moving for another, Cold War. Have you read the news today that, Putin has, there is a news item to say that Putin is trying to revive the base in Cuba? So what, if you look at the map, of the world, Eurasia, the whole of Eurasia will appear to you as a conflict zone. Now you have this, a dispute about this ADIF, Air Defense Identification Zone in Asia Pacific. So have a close look at the map. And so what is happening in Syria, what is happening
Kanu
in Iraq,
Gohain is the former Director General of the Civil Aviation. Former Director General of Civil Aviation. He's also joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Gohain, I want your sense of how probable is it that what happened in Ukraine could happen elsewhere, given all the trouble in the Middle East, given the trouble in North Africa, and as someone who's been responsible for safety and security of the skies, what can India do and what must the world do to guard against such terror militia action, sir?
Rahul, if you just...
Yes, I'm coming back to you. Kanu Gohain.
Cases, yeah.
There have been earlier cases when a Korean airline,
Yes, Mr. Gohain.
Korean airline civilian aircraft shot down by the Russians. We have the Americans in the Middle East shooting down a civilian Iran Air aircraft, where civilians lost their lives for no fault of theirs. Now, in those cases, one could be deliberate, one could be a mistaken identity or lack of communication. Now, all these international civil flights, they follow certain guidance from the ICAO. Now, this is a war zone, or whether you call it a Cold War or whether you call it a conflict. But the point is, these forces today have very sophisticated equipment to reach an aeroplane at 10 kilometers up in the sky. Now, if these weapon systems are available to some rebel or some anti-national forces, they can create havoc everywhere. That is a correct point. But the point which I am trying to make here is now, if this was a war zone and if the Ukrainians had given some airspace, how bad was it or how safe was it for civil transportation? ICAO should have at least examined that issue, disseminated the information to the other airlines to take necessary action. Some may abide by it, some may not abide by it. But ICAO should be responsible to disseminate
That's an important
all
point.
such
That just to
information
save
to the
fuel,
international
you shouldn't be
aviation
trying
community.
to take the shortest possible flight path. You should in fact be taking
Today
the
you
safest possible flight path. But that's not the only threat, because what's gone largely unreported in the midst of all of this, and listen to this very carefully, Iraq's ambassador to the United Nations, Muhammad Ali Al-Hakim, has told United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in a letter that he wrote on the 8th of July that terrorist groups have seized control of nuclear material at sites that have now gone out of the control of the Iraqi state. These materials can be used in manufacturing weapons of mass destruction. Apparently 40 kilograms of about 88 pounds of uranium has been snatched and is currently under the control of ISIS militia. At a time when Britain is sending terrorists, or terrorists from Britain are joining the ISIS. 4 boys from Mumbai went and have reportedly joined the ISIS. Marshal Ahluwalia, how real is the threat of a dirty bomb? You've got one shoulder-fired or surface-to-air missiles as sophisticated as the SA-11, and now you've got reports coming from Iraq that Syrian terrorists have snatched uranium, 88 pounds of it. How real is the threat of a dirty bomb, sir?
Actually, it's very hard to believe this, because I think Iraq has been ransacked for many, many years in search of fissile material, in search of chemical weapons. and actually nothing was found.
Sure, but this
So I
is
would
not
take this with a
enriched
little bit of
uranium.
pinch of salt.
This is not nuclear grade uranium. I think the Iraqi ambassador makes that
I
point.
agree.
This is uranium being used by various laboratories, but he believes that it can be assembled. The stolen uranium which was taken from Mosul can be assembled to make a dirty bomb.
Can I come in?
Yes, to make a dirty bomb, you need the right kind of fissile material, you need the right kind of extraction system, and then more importantly, you've got to have a triggering mechanism, which is the most important thing in this. And lastly, of course, the delivery procedures, the delivery equipment. So considering it all, I don't think it will be easy for anybody to be able to make a dirty bomb and then deliver it. So therefore, no doubt it is something that we have to take notice of. We have to stand up and do something about it. But I don't think we should be too alarmed about this kind of a situation, because firstly, we've got to prove that they have got, it may not be enriched uranium, but anything that can make a bomb is something to be concerned about. But at the same time, let's be practical. Let's establish that this is a fact what has been said, and then move forward.
Okay, I want to put that same question to General G.D. Bakshi. Air Marshal Ahluwalia is saying don't be too concerned. Even if they're able to assemble a dirty bomb, they don't have a weapon system to deliver it. But do they actually need a weapon system in the conventional kind to deliver it, General Bakshi? Because if you've got people from America or Britain or other European countries that have joined forces like ISIS, surely they can find a way of sneaking in. There can also be a person setting himself off. So I think we also need to think differently in terms of what we believe an effective delivery mechanism can be, General Bakshi.
I'd have a slightly different viewpoint on this. Firstly, I tend to agree with him that there is no weapons grade uranium available in Iraq. It was ensured, it was under American occupation, and to that extent we can absolutely rule out weapons grade uranium. And also the Iraqi ambassador has not mentioned that. What he has mentioned is 2 to 3% grade uranium, which is available for normal reactors for their activation. Now these constitute radioactive material. For a very long time, in the intelligence circles, in the military circles, the threat of what is called RDD, radiological dispersal device. What is a radiological dispersal device? It is a normal chemical explosive with which you mix radioactive material. So when that explodes, using the normal detonator system, it spreads not only, that pressure, shock effect and all that kind of a thing, the blast, but it also dispenses radioactive material over a wide area, and that can cause panic and mayhem. The delivery mechanism that you need is a suitcase. You can sort of carry that suitcase and leave it somewhere and trigger that explosion off from a distance.
And that's the fear.
The threat of this has Stefan Leader, etc. Many terrorism experts, counter-terrorism experts have long been talking that the most practical way that the terrorists can utilize these materials is via a radiological dispersal device. If they have been able to lay hands, the ISIS, on the radiological material, radioactive material also, even used, then it can certainly be used for RDDs, and we should worry.
Sheshadri Chari, there are two different theories that we are hearing. One, that even if they get hold of it, it's not nuclear quality material and they won't have a delivery mechanism. The other being that someone can simply carry it and it's radioactive material, so it's very dangerous, very lethal, even if it's not enriched uranium. Mr. Chari.
We had to face a similar problem even in Delhi. Even radioactive material which was used by hospitals for certain medical purposes were found to be disposed of in an erratic manner and a very irresponsible manner, and some kabadiwalas were caught unawares and they had to be treated. And if I am not mistaken, if you go back to your archives, probably 1 or 2 of them lost their lives also. These things have happened. In fact, there have been unexploded bombs that have been found that were probably collected from flash points elsewhere and brought into India, I think from Sudan or somewhere, and they were all found to be very dangerous material. So any kind of such material is dangerous, no doubt about it. But the idea that this has been smuggled out of Iraq is very surprising, because if the Americans entered Iraq to exclusively to tackle the question of weapons of mass destruction, what were they doing there for the last 10 years? I don't understand. And they have trained the Iraqi army for so many years, and in spite of that, it was just 15 days that the Iraqi army, which was trained by the Americans, has lost. They have been fleeing the war zone practically, giving the whole entire area into the hands of the ISIS. Now, the trouble here is not just ISIS. ISIS is not limited geographically only to, say, Syria or Iraq. It is also has got links with Pakistan, Afghanistan, Waziristan, and even India. Therefore, we should not forget the fact that given the large footprint that these terror organizations have, and if there is a cogent, practical methodology wherein they can rope in LET, Al-Qaeda and so many other organizations and other Wahhabi movements, it could be a very dangerous zone. And
you're saying it's very dangerous and can be taken literally anywhere in the globe, especially when you've got Colonel R.S.N. Singh, nationals from those countries who've now joined these terrorist organizations. How do you view how dangerous this threat is, Colonel Singh?
Can you just repeat your question quickly?
My question, sir, is about the threat about a dirty bomb. Reports coming from Iraq that ISIS terrorists have now captured 40 kilograms of uranium, radioactive material that can be used to assemble some sort of a dirty bomb.
40 kgs is a huge amount as far as uranium is concerned. And I totally endorse what General G.D. Bakshi said. There is a fundamental difference between, nuclear weapons and a dirty nuclear bomb. You can, make a casing out of any explosive, you can make a uranium casing and you can create a bomb. So it is altogether a different kind of a threat, not in the same grade as a sophisticated nuclear weapon, which requires sophisticated delivery systems. One. My main point here is that whether it is the use of air defense guns or use of these dirty bombs or otherwise, various kinds of nuclear threats. Now why is this happening is because all these countries have been, destabilized because of, energy politics, because you want to influence, regime changes in these countries. Unless this is stopped, I am telling you, you are not going to see enduring peace. Now, whatever you are seeing in Iraq or Syria was such a stable country. What have you done to it? Look at Ukraine. Ukraine was a stable country, and when Gorbachev, when there was an unwritten understanding between Gorbachev and the Americans that they will not disturb the near abroad of Russia, and today you see they have destabilized. For God's sake, the Americans should stop dictating, their template of democracy. Democracy is not the ultimate objective. In many parts of the world, if everything is evolving, the politics will also evolve.
These are big challenges, Mr. Seshadri Chari, for the Modi government. How does the Modi government deal with this rapidly changing and deteriorating world order, Mr. Chari?
Rahul, give me a minute.
Yes, Mr.
Chari. The question is, it is not what the Modi government has to do or what somebody else has to do. It is not a question of a government. It's a question of the countries that have got concern. There is no point blaming the US or Russia for this matter. I think the first thing that India can do is ask United Nations to convene an emergency meeting of all the member countries and discuss this threadbare. And the most important element that we are missing out here is the total failure of the United Nations or any other geopolitical international mechanism. We don't have any geopolitical international mechanism to tackle the flashpoints all over the globe.
I think that's an important point you make, that no one country by itself can deal with these threats. What is required is a concerted global attempt to try and get together, to stop destabilizing regimes, to stop playing petty regional politics. Only then is there any hope at all that the world can be secured. Otherwise, today It might be the Russians who are playing this game. Tomorrow, some other terrorist organization could possibly come and attack Russian interests. Very, very dangerous times, unnerving times these. And the need, I think, as all our guests established, is for concerted global action. Colonel R.S.N. Singh, Mr. Sheshadri Chari, General G.D. Bakshi, and I am Marshal Ahluwalia for joining us on Center Stage tonight. Thank you.